All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are up and running as of right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started as we do each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Erin Campbell.
Hey, everybody.
Ruben Bressler.
Oh, hi. How's it going?
Oh, what's up? Well, you know, we got this thing. And
We do have a thing for you all.
Yes, and I'm very excited about it. We get our exclusive previews a few weeks out, and then there's a holding period, and then there's a clinching period, and then there's a squeezing period, and sometimes there's leaks, and
a diamond comes out,
and sometimes there's leaks is unreal. Oh my god! Did you plan that?
I just, you know what? Sometimes you see the opportunity, just take it. And
that was spectacular.
Thank you very much. So we have a spoiler. It's super sweet. In fact, it's so cool. We're going to give away a complete playset of this card to a lucky winner, which is going to be sweet. So you guys ready to take a look at it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, now the question is, and I want somebody out there, one of our wonderful viewers, I want to see how long it takes for Mythic Spoiler to get this on the website. Mythic Spoiler, I know you're out there. You can do this.
Big fan of the show.
Big fan. I need to see it in less than 3 minutes. All right, you got 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen,
it usually takes them between 5 and 10, but
but you know what? We're going to strive.
We'll get there
for
this time.
We're going to strive for better. Ladies and gentlemen, Majestic Myriarch is a green and 4 generic mana for a star. It is a mythic chimera. Majestic Myriarch's power and toughness are each equal to twice the number of creatures you control. And boy, do I love me some keyword soup. At the beginning of each combat, if you control a creature with flying, Majestic Myriarch gains flying until end of turn. And the same is true for first strike, double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. That's a lot of keywords.
I'm out of fingers.
This chimera does everything that everyone else can do. It's just a mirror image of your best abilities.
Right.
And it's kind of huge really quickly. Just 2 creatures obviously is going to make this thing a 4/4 and so on and so forth. So it's cool, it's big, it's a monster super dork guy, and it just gets every single keyword all the time. So how do you guys feel about this mythic chimera?
It's beautiful.
It is gorgeous. Those wings are something else.
Yeah.
It's a 5-mana 2/2 by itself, but let's be honest, you're in a green deck, you're going to have a mana dork in play or something. So it's immediately going to be a 4/4 for 5.
Right.
At the very least. And it's got Odric for itself. Odric, Master, whatever. It's the Master Chimera is what this is.
That's right.
Being able to get all the keywords. Or Cairn Wanderer was the first card I thought of when I saw this guy, except for Cairn Wanderer gains all abilities in your graveyard.
Yeah, kind of works backwards in a way, which is kind of sweet.
Yeah. So this guy's pretty sweet. I mean, it's going to take quite the deck to have this be playable and constructed.
Right.
Probably a flying mana dork, which there just aren't a ton of. I mean, R.I.P. Birds of Paradise. But you know, it's a classic green beater. And it's a beautiful piece of art. It's a chimera, which I think is super cool in a world of sphinxes and you know, other mythical beasts. Might be the first chimera that we've had in the world of Amonkhet.
I mean, so far, I think
it's the first chimera that I can think of that isn't one of the cycle from Weatherlight off the top of my head. I mean, I'm sure. Oh, there were a couple of like blue-red chimeras.
There was
that have like spell ability things happening.
Yeah,
but it's a green chimera, which is kind of cool. I just think it's a cool card. I really like it a lot.
It's the first chimera since Theros Block. There were a few chimeras in there.
Okay, that makes sense.
Wasn't Chromanticore a chimera? No, that wasn't. Sorry. Manticore is in the name.
Chromanticore certainly works well with this card.
Yeah.
It certainly
does. By the way, pronounce it slowly for me.
Majestic Myriarch?
Myriarch.
I'm thinking it's Myriarch.
That's what Google told me, and that's the one I'm going with. So.
Wait, is that a word? Myriarch?
That's an actual word, turns out.
That can't possibly be a thing.
That is actually possibly a thing.
It is a thing,
It's a commander of 10,000 men in ancient Greece.
Which goes along with the mechanic of it has power and toughness equal to twice the number of creatures you control. In theory, you're playing it with an army of creatures. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
This card kind of reminded me, you mentioned Cairn Wanderer, I think, Ruben. That was the name of the card you mentioned. This reminded me of Soul Flayer, actually, which was the card from Khan's Block, which is where you delve things. And then if the things you delved, I think, had mechanics on them, then that got those mechanics as well. It's the first place my mind went to when I saw this. But yeah, this was like a lot of fun. I mean, I play Omnath and EDH, and certainly my creatures have, a little bit of everything. I have a little bit of trample. I think I even have one with like Rampage. Shout out to old school mechanics. This thing doesn't get Rampage. But I mean, the bottom line is if you're playing a green deck, and especially an EDH deck, you're bound to have things that sort of check off all the boxes of abilities. And, this thing benefits from all of it. So I think it's dope. I'm pretty happy.
Haste is the big one here, right?
Haste is very important, and a green-red sort of like, go big, play big monsters.
You give it with Stammet. Stammet having all her abilities. You're like, why would you need all these abilities? Run it with Stammet,
Love that.
That's sweet.
Great.
That's a sweet Naya deck right there waiting to happen. This is a card that at worst, is going to be an amazing casual all-star. Like, those who have big green decks, who have a bunch of huge dorks who do all this super cool stuff, and they all have trample, and some of them have flying, whatever. Like, this thing takes advantage of it. It's huge immediately. That's awesome. With a card like Samut, who has 8 Brogilian abilities, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. You know what? This combos pretty well with our last preview of Rhonas.
Yeah.
Indestructible, Death Touch, gaining trample. Like, not bad on that one.
Yeah.
Man, that's
coming down as a 4/4, turning on your Rhonas.
Yeah.
Right, immediately.
And being indestructible itself. So.
And getting all the abilities, just like that. That's
you can have a Magic Mike's theme deck where you run this with Rhonas. And Seasons Past, just in case they both die.
See?
There you go.
That's what Wizards is like subtly doing. They're like building this deck.
They're building us a mono green deck out of Magic Mike's cards.
We're brewers all of a sudden.
I like giant monsters that do cool things.
Sure.
I'm a fan.
I like them. I just don't like paying for them. Like, if I can reanimate them, that's fine.
This is a legal reanimation target, Erin.
Oh, totally. I'm just saying.
You may choose to target this with your Dread.
So, thanks, Wizards, for our super cool exclusive preview. Always a good time. Was not sniped this time, so that's super awesome. So very happy about that. However, we are in the middle of sort of Spoilerville. This is our magical Christmas land. We get Christmas 4 times and now like 37 times a year because Wizards is like, let's just release everything all the time. Like, okay, like Arch Enemy Nicol Bolas happened. Anyone remember that? It was like the other day. And now we're on to this. And we're gonna be on something else.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about some of the previews. Now, Liliana's Demon showed up as Razaketh the Foul-Blooded, a 3-black, 5 generic mana, mythic, 8/8 legendary demon. It is an 8 mana 8/8, which is what Crystal Brand should have been. However, just for aesthetics. However, it has flying and trample. You pay 2 life and sack another creature. You demonic tutor. You search for a card, library for a card, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. So an 8 mana 8/8 with flying and trample. It's doing super cool stuff that doesn't even need mana. Erin, this has to speak to you on a low, sort of deep, ingrained level of how cool this card is.
In the words of you, I kind of peed a little bit when I saw this card.
A little bit of pee came out?
A
little bit, yeah. No, this card is fantastic, especially, which is kind of funny. I love how strong the card is in comparison to how quickly he was dealt with in the storyline. Spoiler alert, he dies. So he comes out in the end of one story and he's killed pretty quickly in the next story. This is a character I would think would have some legs, no pun intended. But, he was dealt with very quickly, and so I was very surprised by that. It's a fun card. When I see a big thing like this, obviously my first instinct is to try to reanimate it. But the problem with this card is you really kind of need another creature to go along with it. Grizzlebrand does a lot by itself. It can give you cards. It has lifelink. You really don't need anything with that, but you need something to go along with Razaketh, ideally. But even then, an 8/8 flying trample is nothing to cry about. But there's also been some talk. There were some people on Twitter that were saying that might be too powerful for Commander. There were some Commander people that were like, this thing cannot be allowed to exist in the format. So I can't relate to that. I haven't been playing Commander well enough to know what's ban worthy, but I'm interested to see why that is, and I'm interested to see if the card does crazy things in Commander to where that happens.
Yeah, I mean, this with Kalia seems kind of gross. Just refill your hand for 10 life.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
So this is, what is this? This is demon number 3 of 4,
There's
right?
one left, yeah.
So we got, Gristlebrand was 1. This is the Liliana storyline of why she has the veil. Kothafed, who was in Origins, Razaketh, who's here in Amonkhet, and then the 4th one is...
I think starts with a B.
Belzenlock.
Sure.
Belzenlock.
Whatever.
Sure, why not?
Belzenlock and...
So this is,
you know,
these are the demons that
Hammerstein.
cursed Liliana and why she's been going on her serial killer rampage of trying to take down demons.
And manipulating the Gatewatch.
And manipulating the Gatewatch for them to do it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Razaketh seems freaking gross in Commander and formats where 8 mana creatures that you cast for 8 mana can take over. And I like Razaketh for another reason, which is Kothafed and Griselbrand were operational on their own. But really, demons are their followers, right? Like, you think of Lord of the Pit, you think of, like, Delrake, Demon at Death's Gate. Like, these are demons that depend on things praying to them. Yeah. And that's what Razaketh really brings forward as well. It's powerful on its own, but the real power is believing in him, like Tinkerbell. When you believe in Razaketh, he becomes more... Yeah, you have to applaud at the end of Act 2. You guys never saw... right? To bring it back to life.
When you sacrifice,
you guys never go see the ballet.
No.
Okay, let's get back. All
right.
So Razaketh not being Tinkerbell, but is super sweet. The vampiric tutor ability is super powerful, and I think that it is a problem in EDH, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, big creature, super cool ability, doesn't need mana cost for it. Okay. However, Rhonas' Last Stand is pretty similar to what we were kind of talking about if there were going to be a cycle. I had said, what if there was like a 2-mana 4/4 or 2-mana 5/5? Well, turns out, kinda, it's a 2-green, 2-green rare sorcery that creates a 5/4 green snake creature token, lands you controlled on untap during your next untap step. So, 2-mana 5/4 is a thing. And just real quickly, because clearly I forgot, I will paste a link to the contest, which is right here. You guys go, you guys enter contest, and let us give you a playset of Majestic Myriarch. All right, so to get back here, 2 mana, 5/4, that's sweet. Now, I like how it's not a creature. If it were a creature, that presents problems. Whether things are revealed to it, or they enter the battlefield, or they're reanimated, or whatever.
You eternalize it, yeah.
Exactly. There's all sorts of ways that you can kind of do things that, as a creature, it won't be as busted, I guess, as just a sorcery makes a token. You can bounce the token, for example, to take care of that, versus if you bounce the creature can come back and get you.
Yeah, this is like, I think this is very similar to Albino Troll, which had Echo. It was a 3/3 for 2 with Echo. Echo's very similar to this Rhonas when you play it on turn 2. Hey, Stompy could make a comeback. Why not? Let's play this with like Greenbelt Rampager, right? Like all the little undercosted green guys. Yeah, I think Rhonas' Last Stand is pretty cool. It remains to be seen how relevant a 5/4 body will be. We don't know how relevant the 4 toughness is going to be yet, or if the 3 toughness is going to be the number, because every set has that number, right? Where this is where the removal's at. So if there's something like a Grasp of Darkness, then a 5/4 is going to be, garbage. But yeah, I think that this card's really cool and has a chance.
Erin, how do you feel about big monsters with very low mana costs? Is that...
I'm all about it. I'm curious how they settled on 4 toughness. Like worms and hydras and things of that nature tend to be like 5/5s. Like we're used to, just 5/5 worms are quite common. I'm so curious why this is a 5/4. Like I'm wondering what that's about.
5/4 snake.
But I think this could see play in. I know mono green sometimes pops up in modern, which a lot of times they run mana dorks to where you don't care necessarily about the exert clause, or if you have an arbor elf, or if you have the elvish mystic or things like that, you don't really care about that. And so I think this could see play there too. I know that there's been a couple of cards which I think we're going to talk about that allow you to like replay Sorceries and Instants all over again, and so that might let you get a little more value out of this. And it's so sad though, because Rhonas was the first to go, and so it's It's kind of hard to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of like last spells where all the things are dying.
Except for one.
Except for one that we'll talk about, which is great. But I think
ain't going like that.
For me, the 5/4 is the most obvious development tweak. Like,
yes,
they're in development. I absolutely feel like this came in as a 5/5, and it was just too good. 2-mana 5/5 is just a thing. That's a very magical number. Versus 4 toughness, which you can block with a 1/1 and bolt it, or use a 3 damage spell of some nature. Like,
or Glory Bringer,
Grasp of Darkness.
Right,
Grasp of Darkness. Yeah.
There's a lot that it's important about making it good and sexy and interesting and exciting, but not.
Did you just call?
Yeah,
sexy and exciting.
Token
sexy.
It's also got 5/4. Keep in mind, everything in this set is going to be a 4/4. Everything in this set eternalizes.
True.
So maybe that's the reason.
Right. This looks very okay. So next up is my favorite card name, at least in the past 3 years. River Hoopoe. River Hoopoe. Hoopoe. That's our hoopty ride up on her. River Hoopoe is a blue and a blue and a green, and it's a 1/3 flyer, and it's uncommon, and it has a static ability of blue, green, and 3 generic mana : you gain 2 life and draw a card. This thing is bananas in limited, actual like just a bushel o' bananas in limited.
It's crazy in limited.
2 mana evasion, the right toughness to block all the 2 power guys, a static ability that's absolutely amazing in green blue, and it's got the best name. It's the Hoopoe.
It's the Hoopoe.
That's right.
Which is a real bird. That is a real thing that you find in North Africa. And as you can see in the art here, it's on a bank of a river of blood, which is kind of creepy.
As you do.
Like you do.
Like you do. Guys, you got to go Google what real river hoopoes look like. They're black and white instead of blue and green. But
more importantly, you need to watch the video that this was spoiled in. Shout out to MTG Rhino, who is cute as a button. He did this whole safari themed thing where he went to either his backyard or to a park and had little binoculars, and he incorporated it in the video, and it was just delightful. And so the card is great, and the video it was revealed in is awesome too. And go support Rhino because he's a sweetheart.
This card is going to be my highest picked uncommon because I always draft the Gift of Paradise blue-green mid-range control kind of decks. Mm-hmm. And so this will always end up in my deck. So I'm super excited to play this guy. And also, honestly, you needed more mana sinks in the limited format for Amonkhet. And this is just an insane mana sink. A lot of the time in Amonkhet Limited, you end up having 9 mana and just having nothing to do with it. And so this card, things like Unraveling Mummy, the new 3/3 zombie that makes attacking zombies indestructible, the Accursed Horde, lots of good mana sinks like that here coming in Hour of Devastation.
I mean, I have never beaten, nor have I ever lost with a Bounty of the Luxa. I swear that card is ridiculous.
I've lost to it decking myself. That is the only way I've ever lost with it.
Telling you, man. All right, so let's keep moving here into our next set, which is there's a couple modal spells I wanted to bring up, because Wizards has this very much, A or B for just another extra mana that you want to do here. We've already seen the Mana Leak / Impulse. Well, now we have Doomfall, which is a black and 2 generic mana. It's an uncommon sorcery. Choose one. Target opponent exiles a creature he or she controls, or target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card and you exile that card. So it's not quite. Obviously, it's a very expensive discard spell, but it's kind of a expensive removal spell. But in the middle of it, with all of that kind of flexibility, it becomes a lot more playable.
Right. It's Cruel Edict's Coercion split card.
Yeah.
Except for that you exile, which is hugely relevant.
And they get to choose.
They do get to choose.
But it does exile.
They get to choose their creature that they sacrifice, which if they're playing things like Ulamog, then they choose it, and then they exile it. That's pretty sweet. Yeah. We almost predicted this card last week.
Yeah,
we were very close.
On the money lately.
We were close to it. But yeah, I think that this card is standard playable. We've had a lot of things like Tribute to Hunger, see play, 3 mana, sacrifice, Cruel Edict kind of effects. And I think that this is a necessary piece for the control decks if they're going to play black. It's probably too slow for anything that isn't standard, but it is a really excellent piece to have access to.
So this next card, I just couldn't get over honestly, how pushed it feels. Nimble Obstructionist is a blue and 2 generic mana for a 3/1 flash flying rare bird wizard. And not only that, it has cycling for a blue and 2 generic mana, and when you cycle it, you counter target activated or triggered ability you don't control. It's a super stifle on top of a ridiculous 3 mana 3/1 flash flyer evasion. The thing just slices and dices and screws up things, and is kind of in this weird list of like all the cards that would be messing with Marvel right now, and people would be really excited to try to get Marvel players to run into it. It's at the right mana cost for that. It's so weird to see Solemnity and all these options that Wizards is like, look at how we're hating on energy and how we can stop the energy shenanigans. And they had to ban it right before the set came out. And now I'm starting to wonder, I'm like, man, so many different tools to hate on Marvel. And yet here we are.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, beyond the fact that you would probably just play the card 2 colorless and a blue, counter target activated or triggered ability you don't control, draw a card, can't be countered. Like, you would probably just play that as a 1 of in Modern Control, maybe 2 of. And then it's also stapled to a 3/1, like as your split card option. It's really good. This card is really, really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it makes me wonder if Wizards of the Coast, people who were in charge of the banned and restricted list, were even talking to the people who make the cards, because you have all these answers to all of these other to Marvel coming out, and it's really weird to see them all coming out like this. Not that I mind Marvel being banned, far from it. I'm just saying that Nimble Obstructionist is joining the crew, and it's a really good one.
Wow.
I did see some people on Twitter that were sad that you couldn't target your own things. They were like, damn, no stifle nodding here.
Right. Sure. So
I thought that was fun. It does seem to be, you kind of talked about how in the modal spells seem to be a thing, and specifically how that could be a boon to control decks, where, at different points of the game, it can be whatever you need, where it's like, you're talking about the blue one, where it's like, do you need a mana leak type spell? It can be that. Okay, are we past that point and you just need to filter to find some cards? It can do that. We're looking at the black card, where it's like, okay, if they have a really big beater on the board that maybe slipped through your counter spells and slipped through your kill spells, you can deal with that. If you're past that point and maybe you need to resolve like your finisher, like resolving your bolus, resolving your whatever it is, you can sort of clear the way for that. And I think it's a really interesting direction to sort of take control in, rather than just having these spells that need to be, that are static, that don't change throughout the game. And even this card does it. It's like, okay, it can cycle it and it does a counter spell thing. Or sometimes if you've just worn them down and you're at that point where you need to turn the corner and close out the game, okay, fine, here's a 3/1 beater. You've probably taken out your removal against me anyways. Here's the thing. And so I think that's a really neat way to sort of play control. And, I hope that this kind of gives control the shot in the arm that they need in Standard.
Absolutely.
We have an update.
Oh, God.
Majestic Myriarch is up on Mythic Spoiler.
Oh, my God.
How long did it take?
I mean,
since we put the image up, it was about 20-ish, maybe 18 minutes.
What? Don't you know who we are? Like,
wow.
I'm just telling you.
You know what? Torment of Hailfire, I'm just going to mention really quick because I thought it was cool. They had a whole mechanic that literally did this, which was, I think, the punish mechanic or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Or some sort
Hailfire.
of... And anyway, Torment of Hailfire.
Torment of Hailfire.
Because I want to say that because I'm from Tennessee and it just feels good when you say Torment of Hailfire. And Hailfire, it's two black and an X for a rare sorcery. You repeat the following process X times. And it's funny how they word this because of layering. But first sentence is, repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless that player sacrifices a non-land permanent or discards a card. It's just a cool, neat, super finisher in Limited. Probably not going to get there in Constructed because it gives the opponent too much choice. I just like saying Hailfire.
Hailfire.
The art is beautiful. I believe it's one of the game day mats.
Yes.
And it's beautiful. Like, before I even knew what this card did, I saw the art and I was like, I want that mat. When you see the word each, that means it's good in Two-Headed Giant. That means it's good in Commander. I think this could be a thing. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I love hearing you guys say that.
Torment of Hailfire.
Hailfire, y'all.
That's what I'm saying. You see the word each opponent and you go, Elder Dragon Highlander. I mean, this is one of those cards that you just pray and you open up in Two-Headed Giant. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just this card is a reckoning in Two-Headed Giant. Yeah. You're probably right that in any one-on-one format it's probably not good enough. But
each opponent.
The wording of this card was is super weird, but also caused a little bit of controversy because they didn't know exactly what X meant in terms of translating what this text says into English, right? Because it says repeat the following process X times. Mm-hmm. And so when they originally wrote this card, it was probably each opponent loses 3 life until et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Repeat this process X times. Right. And then people would have been like, wait, do you do it once and then X, or X total? And then that's why this weird wording came about. It is super strange wording that I'm curious to see if they'll continue with in the future, because it's super weird.
I was curious about the number 3 because in addition to this card, Torment of Scarabs and Torment of Venom was released around the same time. And so if you'll notice, Torment of Hailfire says 3 life, Torment of Scarabs also says 3 life, and Torment of Venom gives the 3-1 counter and the 3 life. And I was like, it's very interesting. I was like, I wonder what the significance was. And most people thought it just had to do with the 3 Uber gods, and that's really what it was. But I was like, I'm noticing a pattern here.
So
that makes sense.
I wanted to bring up another card that I thought was super duper cool. First up on our next slide is Champion of Wits, and it's also our first Eternalized card. We can talk a little bit about that. A blue and 2 generic mana for a 2/1 rare Naga wizard, and when it enters the battlefield, you may draw cards equal to its power, and if you do, you discard 2 cards. So right off the bat, it is a catalog. Catalog is 3 mana, draw 2, discard 2. Okay, or is it
catalog
less?
was discard 1.
Discard 1. Fair enough.
This is Careful Study.
Thank you. Careful Study, even better. So, Careful Study on the way in. Now, Eternalize is the new ability that makes a 4/4 with all of the abilities of the creature that you exile using it. So that means when you pay 7 and this enters the battlefield again, you're going to draw 4 and discard 2. You're basically going to play a Thought Flare.
Yeah.
More or less for free-ish, you know, as it were. And there's just a lot of value around this card, I feel, and you know the power is important. And maybe it's just a limited thing that you'll get to have fun with, but you know, drawing cards, getting value later on, being able to play stuff from your graveyard. You know, I think there's certain cards that have that kind of lasting staying power that are better than on first read. Yeah,
I'm super excited to play this card in limited with Supernatural Stamina. Just because I think that's going to be hilarious to get more uses out of this guy. This card's pretty sweet. I'm a little disappointed that it's called Champion of Wits and has no interaction with having 200 or more cards in your library. That's my only complaint. But yeah, I think this card's super cool.
Erin, it does let you draw cards and put things in graveyards.
It's true.
I'm already listening. The Eternalized cost is really expensive, but we've certainly seen other cards that have been spoiled that would let you get it back for free.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's fine. I love the art too. It seems like we have a Lady Naga, and she's conjuring some stuff, and it's pretty. It's fun to look at.
It's pretty cool. So this next card is like, it's kind of blowing people's minds. No one really knows what to do with it.
Chompers.
Ammit Eternal is a black and 2 generic mana 5/5. So we have a 3 mana 5/5 rare zombie crocodile demon.
He's
3
so
words
cute.
that should probably not go together.
No, look how cute he is.
He's just adorable, yes it is. Who's the good crocodile? Who wants to eat the brains? Who wants to eat the brains? Wow. All right. So it has Afflict 3, which means whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 3 life. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a -1/-1 counter on it. And whenever Ammit Eternal deals combat damage to a player, you remove all -1/-1 counters from it. So it's a 5/5 for 3, but it's not. It lets your opponent kind of control how big it is. But if it ever gets through, then it becomes a 5/5 again and kind of resets. So this is a weird value card for me. Like, this is like, I don't think anyone really knows what happens until you play with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Because otherwise, where do you go with these weird conflicting abilities?
I'm seeing a lot of discussion around it, and it's kind of like in the same vein that you had mentioned, Evan, of people look at it and they're like, there's something here, we just don't know what. And so I'm really interested to see, like, you know, in the hands of the pros, for example, if there's something that we're all just missing, you know, being mere mortals. But I think the card's adorable. I named him Chompers because he's just so cute, and just I love everything about it. I love that. So if I'm understanding the lore correctly, are the Ammits more like humans, or are they more like pets?
No.
Like, are they?
So Ammits, they're gods. They're like demigods, kind of. They were soul eaters in ancient Egypt. I don't know how they behave in. Yeah, they're not really Cerberus. They're more like chimeras, actually. They're part crocodile, part hippo, part lion. which it should also be a zombie hippo, lion, zombie, demon,
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle creature.
Got it.
But yeah, they ate souls. That's what they ate.
Okay.
They ate souls, and
They're
they were the reason why they came about was because crocodiles, hippos, and lions are the biggest three things in Africa that ate humans. And so that's, they were like, well, what if we combine the three? Terrifying nightmare mammoth.
Well, the reason I was asking is because it was my understanding that the things that the people being eternalized were the ones that had passed all of the trials. And so what I was asking is, I didn't know when I didn't think an Ammit could do the trials. And so I was like, are they just taking their pets with them, or like I think that's really cool. But I was just trying to understand like whether they could speak
quite well armored. So
yeah, I think it's great.
Like this one may have passed a trial, I guess. I honestly don't know.
I don't know. I mean, it feels like, like it's weird. It's amalgam. It's a boogeyman, that can be a boogeyman, and they built it that way, and they're just kind of silly and adorable. And Zombocadile is something that, or Zombiecadile, I think, is something that's coming from the chat here. Zombodile?
I'll allow it. It's cool.
Zombodile. You can also combo this with either Vizier of Remedies to not give it any -1/-1 counters ever, or Hapatra to take advantage of all those -1/-1 counters that it's going to inevitably get. Yeah.
And shout out to Allison Lures, who gave Hapatra a huge starring role in today's story, and it was just a delight to read. So go read that. And Tuya, give Tuya a card, please. If you don't know who Tuya is, go read that story, but it deserves a card.
It was pretty freaking good today. So Overwhelming Splendor is next. And every judge is so pissed off at Wizards right now. Every judge is going to get to go read up on layers. Crap, because it's 2 white, 6 generic mana. It's an 8 mana mythic aura curse that you enchant a player. Creatures enchanted player controls lose all abilities and have base power and toughness of 1/1. Enchanted player can't activate abilities that aren't mana abilities or loyalty abilities. So this is humility targeting you. There is no card that will drive a judge more insane than humility. It's like the #1 because there's layers of effects that happen to creatures and what modify them. And this is, there's layers on everything where the creatures or enchantments or whatever. Urborg versus Blood Moon was always a kind of a weird one. But regardless, this is the type of stuff where, well, if I do this, well, what if I giant growth it? Well, but then what if this gives it a counter, but then I do this? I mean, this is the stuff that drives people insane because the way that things are layered could make your creature bigger or smaller depending on what it is. Sometimes when it was played, it's weird, and all the judges are just like, oh my god.
I've seen this card. Somebody had discussed a card called Bitterheart Witch, which is the original Innistrad. She's 4 and a black with Death Touch. A little 1/2, kind of innocuous. But when she dies, you can search your library for a curse card and put it onto the battlefield and attach it to target player and then shuffle your library. So it does seem like there are ways to possibly cheat this into play. And I think that's fantastic. And so I don't imagine it taking over or becoming like tier 1 worthy, but it's neat to see people at least trying to do dumb things with this. And the fact that it's one-sided is great, and it's great just to see a new sort of generation of people who weren't around for humility that are like, that's kind of scary, and then you show the humility and you're like, you have no idea. And like, I think it's a great callback. The art is beautiful. The art kind of reminds me of Trinisphere actually a little bit, but yeah, it's beautiful, and it's definitely an OMG kind of card. Like, what? And,
well, in the next set in Dark Ascension, Curse of Misfortunes is a black and 4 generic mana or a curse. You go find a curse every turn that they don't have on them yet, and you're like, I guess it'll be this one.
So modern curses, if you Curse of Misfortunes, you can get this and Curse of Death's Hold, turning all of those base power 1/1s into nothing.
Nice.
Saffron Olive, you need to make a curse deck. Come on, Seth.
Oh, it's curse time.
And the other one, speaking of combos with Overwhelming Splendor, my first thought was Enduring Ideal. Which is from the white epic spell that got second place at an old extended Pro Tour. This is the kind of card that deck needed from Modern, because it was a successful deck in old extended because it had access to things like solitary confinement. This is another big thing that you can get first to shut down an opponent's infinite combo. Turn off all their Ulamogs, turn off all their 5/5s, all that kind of good stuff. I think that Overwhelming Splendor getting cheated into play is a reasonable thing to do in Modern. it probably would have been a reasonable thing to do with your Etherworks Marvel as well. And it's also something that you might want to do with your ramp.
Yeah,
in Standard. There's a ramp spell in this set. I don't know are we talking about the new ramp spell?
We're not.
There is a new ramp spell in this set that will let you cast this thing as early as like turn 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. So I think that Overwhelming Splendor has a lot of things to be excited about.
Nykthos and Mono White Devotion, yeah.
There you go, perfect.
Woohoo.
Yeah, those Mono White prison decks that some people insist on playing. Todd Stevens and that damn red white.
Yeah. Perfect.
So we got to keep moving here. I wanted to quickly touch on a super cool, like one of the most push combat tricks I've seen in a long time, Appeal to Authority. Appeal is one half of the spell. It's a single green. It's an uncommon sorcery. Until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. Okay. Authority, when you turn your head sideways, is a white and a generic mana, which has Aftermath, of course, and you tap up to 2 target creatures your opponents control. Creatures you control gain vigilance until end of turn. It's been many years since I've seen a card so clearly to kick your opponent in the junk area. In Limited, this thing is bananas. This thing
Kick
is
him in the
just,
Splendor.
it's overrun like in a little tiny package. Like, yeah, you need to have certain things correct, whatever, but giving your creatures trample is just the ultimate just smack in the face beyond this card already being powerful. It's just, yeah, my dudes they're not even tapping this turn. Just boom, deal with it. And I can block all your stuff. Go. Good luck.
This card's bananas in Limited. It's not going to see any play in Constructed, but this is quite the green-white, finisher, basically, in Limited. Cards like Trial of Solidarity were already amazing in Amonkhet Limited, whereas sometimes that would just be a Warrior's Honor. Sometimes you're just like, all right, my creatures get +2/+1. But now you've got, Inoketra's name is like a mid-level kind of 6th-7th pick in certain swarm kind of decks in your green-white aggro decks, and Appeal to Authority in a normal format might not be that impressive, but in this format, boy, is this thing just going to end games super quick.
God, it's so sweet. All right, so moving on, because we got to keep moving on. So, Erin, you got to tell me about Hollow One. This thing seems just made for you. Hollow One is a 5 generic mana 4/4. Why were we talking about a 5 generic mana 4/4? Well, it's a rare golem, but it costs 2 generic mana less to cast for each card you've cycled or discarded this turn. And it also has cycling because reasons. Who cares? But that means with Bazaar of Baghdad, you literally play it for free immediately. It's just boom. It's just in play. Just a man to deal with.
I have enough of those, let's be honest. Wow. So this card is KYT. Shout out to KYT in the First Strike podcast. They were the young men who got to spoil this card, and most people were like, and I happened to tune in when they were spoiling it, and even they were like, well, it's a 4/4 for 0, and what's that going to do? And just being dopey like they are, and God bless them. But when you went to the mana drain, though, people were like, oh my god, it's a free 4/4, this is great. And so I think this card is definitely worth testing in Vintage. Obviously it's a fine way to possibly get around Graveyard Hate, because people are likely to mulligan for Graveyard Hate, and what better way to say screw you to a Grafdigger's Cage and just start casting free 4/4s. And Ruben, you brought this up in the pre-show, other than the few copies of Swords to Plowshares that people run in Vintage, how do you deal with a 4/4 in Vintage? Like, what do you do? There's no
most things that
it's bigger than everything in the format. This is not a format where people play Death Shadow or Tarmogoyf. So.
No, and so being able to cast something a 4/4 for 0, with your Bazaars, and the cycling is very relevant. Say that you do need to cycle, you're still getting a draw, you're still getting a dredge. If you have to, I think this card is really worthy of testing in Vintage. Even in other formats, pairing it with Faithless Looting, I think is sweet. I'm really looking forward to playing with this card and doing something with it, and it's just everything I want.
Faithless Looting, Cathartic Reunion, Street Wraith.
Yes!
There's a lot of super interesting things that you can do with Hollow One in a lot of different formats. Wow. And it dodges a lot of the hate. The other interesting thing I like about Hollow One is Emerge. You can reduce its cost a whole bunch, and so you can play a bunch of the Emerge creatures off of a 5 mana 4/4, even after it just gets in for 4 once, and then start playing your Distended Mindbenders or whatever.
Wow. Oh my goodness!
So I really think Hollow, and also by the way, it's just a walking sarcophagus, which is
that picture is amazing. Actually,
it is really.
broken off arms. It's incredible.
Yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff. I mean, you know, beyond just your traditional Faithless Lootings, instant neonates, and things like that. There's a lot of fun stuff. And oh, by the way, Bazaar into Hollow One lets you, you know,
my favorite
go off against the guy that mulliganed to 4 to get their Leyline avoided.
is that if you have 2 Hollow Ones, they're both nothing to cast. You
Yes.
both just go, oh, okay, these.
Yeah.
And like,
So if you're playing Living End, after sideboard, and they're like, oh, they're bringing in their Rest in Pieces, and you're just like, cycle Street Wraith, cycle, you know, the Monsters Carabid, play 3 4/4s on turn 1, go, and they're looking at their hand of like Surgical Extractions and Chalice the Voids, and it's like, oh, well, oh dear.
that card is just like secretly kind of surprisingly super cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super cool. And any cost reduction mechanic is always scary. Anytime things get cheaper on something that could be powerful, it is cause for concern and testing, and maybe nothing happens, but wow, the possibilities right now are definitely
I also kind of
endless.
enjoy the flavor too. You know, if you read the flavor text, it says the embodiment of yearning, you know, journeying to find what once made it whole, you know, and you're essentially discarding things or cycling things, which means putting things in the graveyard, essentially putting bodies back in the sarcophagus. Maybe I'm reaching too deep here, Vorthoses, but I just love everything about it from top to bottom. It's just great.
Yeah.
Going pretty deep. However,
Pretty
there's a really quick land cycle I want to touch on. There are some uncommon deserts, and there's one in each color, but we only wanted to talk about the red one. Rumanap Ruins, which is one of the funnest names in Magic the Gathering right now.
Rumanap Ruins.
Rumanap Ruins. Well, I'm hanging with my boys. I mean, like, Rumanap while you're Rumanapping, because, you know, you Rumanap so hard. Anyway, it's a uncommon desert that it doesn't come into play untapped. You tap for a colorless mana. You tap, you pay 1 life to add a red mana, or 2 red, 2 generic mana, tap and sacrifice a desert, not necessarily itself. Rumanap Ruins deals 2 damage to each opponent. And I point this out because maybe some of the other lands of this cycle are going to get there, but this one feels like the closest to saying that red decks don't care, and red decks will run this because at the end of the game, when they've stalled out and they just need to kill their opponent, well, land damage is some pretty good damage to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is, you know, what's the one from Odyssey, the Barbarian Ring, has seen Eternal play for quite a long time.
Too.
The fact that this doesn't target your opponent can be relevant. It just deals the damage to them, whether they have a Solitary Confinement or an Ivory Mask effect in play or not.
It wouldn't be a Magic Mike podcast without a little tatering of the wrestlers. All right, buddy, you're back. We see you. You're back. Has he detated? Oh God, he's not even totally detated.
Oh no.
Well, is good, and it's good. And that's
Sacrifice a potato. Ramanat Wrestler.
Yeah, my internet's ruins.
Woo! All right, buddy. Well, we'll come back. All right, we'll come back and see you.
Are we back? Where are we?
We can hear you. You're not moving so much anymore.
I mean, this card's great. I think that, you know, you've seen cards before. The eccentric is super cool, and I has a chance to see play.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't know when I'm gonna die. I don't know when my potato.
Oh my God.
All right, look, we have another story. We got to get moving on. All right, we got to keep on rolling on. We've talked about plenty of spoilers. There's a few more we didn't get to. Certainly interesting when blue is like reanimating things, a weird control magic thing that you don't untap, a fixed mind's desire, which they gave red.
Green's giving you black zombie tokens that aren't even locusts, which are the thing that are eating the Heckma. Like, ugh.
It is really weird. So let's just go on now into Going Infinite, because there's other things to talk about this week in the Magic community, and that includes the Hall of Fame ballots. The Hall of Fame ballots are out, and the drama is already cranked. Like, we've already seen people...
It's so delicious. I love it.
Talk about so-and-so should be there, so-and-so should not be there. You should not be at a point of moral authority to say that so-and-so should be in. Yada, yada, yada. All I know is it's almost impossible for Raptor not to make it in his first ballot.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's, Josh Arthur-Layton is just... an amazing Magic player, and my expectation that he's going to sail in, just cruise on in there, no problem. However, for the rest, and certainly for the Chris Paculas of the world, it's a question mark. There was, I feel, a similar kind of reaction response. If Chris Pacula doesn't make it this year, he's going to fall off. He's going to fall off the ballot, and that's a thing. And he has to he has to do certain things, get back on the Pro Tour in order to be able to show up here again. Everyone, I think, rallied around him last year. I mean, I certainly did. I felt like I did what I could in terms of saying, like, this is who I'm voting for. This is why I think it's important. Now they're like, now Wizards employees are also coming out for Chris, and I think that's amazing. But there's this weird pushback of, like, Wizards, it's your Hall of Fame. If you like somebody so much, you can just put them in there. It's your playground, man. It's your sandbox, and you can let whoever you want go build castles.
So what do you think about that, though? Like, so there was some flack earlier because a lot of the Wizards folks were openly campaigning for Pacula. Elaine Chase had made a tweet, Gavin Verhey made a tweet, Morrow made a tweet, and Patrick Sullivan actually clapped back and was like, to Morrow, and was like, you wrote a 3,800-word missive defending Mike Long, who's one of the most famous cheaters in the game, and now you're advocating that you let in one of the best advocates against cheating in the game. Like, which is it, girl? What do you think about that? Like, do you think that they should be openly, doing that? Like, isn't the whole point of having the hashtag that you're not really doing any conflict of interest stuff? And would you say that this is a conflict of interest? Like, how do you feel about that?
I would say that it's not a conflict of interest in that, because Wizards doesn't necessarily get anything out of it. Those guys get, I think, satisfaction. I think they want this. I think it's good for the game. I mean, I certainly see the bonuses for it. In terms of, like, conflict of interest per se, it's should they be trying to influence people? Is that is that a position that we should be comfortable with? And I think it really sort of pertains to this is like our little microcosm that Magic has. It's like Magic politics. This is where it is in this weird little thing of now it's about, well, what is their resume? Well, have they contributed enough? Well, have they campaigned at all? Have they done things? Have they streamed, or have they wrote articles to say that they really want in the hall, and so on and so forth? That's where we kind of get down to this thing where people kind of campaign and talk about stuff, and they're kind of getting in the fray. But ultimately, I think they want it because I feel it's probably they like Chris and they like what he stands for and what he's done and whatnot. But the other half is like, it's good for Magic to have awesome ambassadors be in the Hall of Fame, and absolutely, that's good for the game. Period. I mean, Ruben, you feel I'm wrong on this one?
No, I mean, look, I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, it's like there's so many people who are responsible for the growth of the game, but it's the Magic Hall of Fame. It's not the Magic Hall of really good, right? Like, where's the line?
The line would be your internet connection.
Again?
No, she's messing.
You said really good versus great, and I was like, the line.
Mine isn't even great. Mine's not even getting in the Hall of Fame. So, like, if I had a vote for the Hall of Fame, there are three different strategies that I could see using. One is Raptor, period, right? Like, that's the only person that gets in, which is something that that was argued by the guy that used to make all of the awesome spreadsheets for who had how many points. Sveinung Bjornerud, Sene1 on Twitter, who argued that he would vote for Raptor, and that's it, believing in a smaller Hall of Fame, right? But then you could argue, all right, obviously Raptor deserves to be in, but you know what? Pacula was one vote shy in the first vote. Everyone wants him in. It's the Hall of Fame. Pacula's famous. He's good for the game. Put him in. Mine, I think I would vote for 4 people. I would put in Raptor and Pacula, as well as Martin Juza and Mark Herberholtz would be my ballot of 4. Juza, because of his love for the game, because I think that even though he only has 3 Pro Tour top 8s, 24 Grand Prix top 8s with 4 wins means something. 445 lifetime pro points means something. Yeah. Level 50 in terms of being a Planeswalker level. He's an Archmage. I think he's got the second most Planeswalker points all time. Means something. I think that's an important thing to talk about. And then Mark Herberholtz. I think that a Pro Tour win with a deck that he's primarily responsible for, winning with a deck that he designed, being a personality on the Pro Tour scene for so long, having that Pro Tour win, having the numbers to back it up, and being emblematic of an era of Magic and being a beloved character and having probably the most famous Pro Tour winners shot of all time with his,
right, super excited, happy face,
super excited on the beach, happy face photo. I think that those all mean something. But I've also got a list of 13 to 15 other people who I think have the prerequisite numbers, who are either getting there or are on their way or quote unquote deserve some attention. I don't know where the line is.
Is this the Scott Johns argument? We're going to get there.
Look, so if you look at the people, he's not even on the ballot this year. So he is.
He is.
Is he?
I think this is the last year without, again, sort of like
he's got a win. He's got a Pro Tour win and 5 Pro Tour top 8s. Everyone else with those numbers is in the Hall of Fame. Every single other person with 5 top 8s and 1 win is in the Hall of Fame. Everyone else with 5 top 8s is in the Hall of Fame, except for Raptor and Li Shiqian, who's not eligible yet.
Right.
So, what are we talking about here? Like, are we? I just don't know where we're deciding to draw the line. Kyle Rose is another name that I brought up during the pre-show. Y'all don't even know who Kyle Rose is. Y'all Googling Kyle Rose right now, discovering he's got a Pro Tour win and 4 top 8s and was probably the best limited player in the world in 1998 and 1999. And then there are people who are still on the list. Carlos Romao, Craig Wesco. This is Richie Hohen's last year on the nominee list.
Saito's still on there too.
Saito, yes. I mean, we could always have the Saito discussion of, he got voted in once. When do we vote him in? Back in, I guess.
When does it happen? I don't know.
There's other huge names on this list. Mike Ron, Sam Black, Justin Gary, Osip. Lebedovich is still on this list. So, not to mention the trio of famous Japanese players, Osawa, Asahara, and Tsuyoki Aichida, who had Aikida, not Aichida, who had a little bit of a push last year, but not so much noise so far this year, although we're very early. But yeah, I mean, this is always the discussion. It's like, and Erin loves it because it's when Magic players get all catty with each other.
I live.
It's all about who deserves what. Who deserves everything. I don't.
The Patrick Sullivan clapback made me howl. I was just like, oh my god. And then I have to say, Evan, you're the one that has the ballot here, right? Because Urban Meyer aren't as big as you, and you had sent us a list from the ballot, a little copyright transcript of the ballot, and mine actually had a mistake on it. Mine didn't have a Reduke on it, so I don't know who you have to call to get a right copy. But yeah,
I'll get it right on that. I'll make sure that happens for you.
Okay, thank you, because I don't want to have to Sharpie that bitch and do Raid Duke and just write it.
He doesn't have a high enough PTS FPT.
He has a high enough everything.
Pro Tours played since first Pro Tour, or whatever the letters need to be for that.
Not quite eligible yet. That's all.
Yeah,
he's getting
when
there.
He is eligible. He'll be in consideration.
He'll be in high consideration.
He's eligible in all of our hearts.
Right. I don't know I don't know who exactly I'm going to vote for at this point, but I'm certainly feel like Raptor is just the shoe-in, and I feel like Pakula is what I want to see in a Hall of Famer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know Pakula. I've met him multiple times. Super cool guy. Great at Magic. I mean, he's meddling mage. I mean, come on.
Right. And I also like voting for people who I know will use the invite.
Right.
And I know Chris Pakula will use the invite.
Yeah.
Right. And
if we vote Scott Johns in, do we think Scott Johns is going to use the invite? Is my question. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
Well, and then there's this weird, and here's where it gets catty, Aaron. It's just so and so is in the Hall of Fame, and they just use it as a vacation, and it's you get a free. I think you get some sort of sponsorship, you get some sort of payout, you get to hang out with your friends, and it's a cool time for Magic, and you didn't test anything, but whatever. So that's.
I also think that there's a subset of players who are. Raptor gets to go in on his first ballot because he's Raptor. Last year, Owen got to go in on his first ballot because he's Owen. But then there's a subset of players who are very, very, very good and are on their way to Hall of Fame resumes, but they're not done yet. Your Jerry T's, your Craig Wesco's, your Sam Blacks. They've got, they're super deserving of all the accolades and attention that they're getting. I just don't think that they are there yet. They're still working. Right. And Juza is at the very top of that, and I think just crested over the top with his 3rd top 8, and I think that all of the other things support him getting in.
Yeah.
His numbers are quite amazing. So let's move on here to Gathering the Townsfolk, where there was a very, very famous man who decided to show up at GP Vegas, and then they wrote a really weird article about it on Kotaku. Erin, could you tell us a little bit about Cassius Marsh, his experience at GP Vegas, and how it was covered?
Yeah. So a young man decided to write an article for Kotaku, basically covering Cassius Marsh being at GP Vegas. And a lot of people felt like the article was just rude, quite frankly. The title of it is Cassius Marsh competes in Magic Tournament and gets wrecked. Why? Like, why is that your title? And so you click on it, and so there were some people that suggested that it was supposed to be satire, that it was supposed to be sort of sassy, but yet still sort of humorous. And a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, didn't take it that way. So for example, they go on to mention some clips of his feature match, and they say things like, "Here's Marsh dying a speedy death in game 1. Why?" And then they say, "Here's the concession and handshake for game 2. Marsh's final standings show a finish of 3,150th place out of 3,400 players, notching just 1 win over the course of the tournament." Wow. From what I understand, he dropped to either do a panel or he dropped to do like these celebrity bounties that were going on. So it just felt like a really weird takedown. And from what I understand, Twitch was also really rude to him too. And, you know, it did seem a little bit like almost nerd envy of like, here's this guy who's a jock. He's probably got a couple bucks in the bank. He's not a bad looking dude. And it really felt like this was just an opportunity to sort of take him down. And I just didn't really understand any of this. And I embrace the petty. We all know that. But like, it just didn't even feel called for. And so there was a bit of a backlash. Kotaku tweets a couple of things in the article. It still looks petty from the looks of it. And there's a faux apology at the end of it. But they do acknowledge. That's what I call fake. It's a fake apology.
Hashtag faux. Hold on, I'm typing this one into the chat. Apology.
It is. So they say like, you know, some readers have complained, you know, his enjoyment of Magic is admirable. It's way too many words to simply say we're sorry. And the moral of this story to me, and I have a rant incoming, so I'm just warning you right now. The moral of this story is don't make content for people who don't care about you. Yep. And what I mean by this is when you write for sites that are big, like Deadspin, Kotaku, BuzzFeed, you are not a person anymore. You are simply a delivery system for traffic. Make them mad, make them sad, make them happy. Do whatever you need to do to get them on your website. And if they have to throw you to the wolves to do it, they're completely willing to do that. One of the reasons that I've stuck around with Gathering Magic for so long is because I feel like I'm treated like family. There were so many stupid ideas that I pitched to Adam Staborski, and even that I've pitched to you, Evan, and you guys have been like, no. Because you think enough of me as a person to not send me out into the world looking crazy. And you also think enough of your website to where you don't need that to generate traffic. But I feel like these major websites, if an editor had looked at this, if a content manager had looked at this, there are checks and balances that are supposed to be in place when you hit that big time, where if somebody had looked at this and was like, you know what, girl, you're not really meant for satire. This really isn't coming across right. Let's rethink this. Nobody stopped him. And I'm not saying that the author's innocent or anything, but somebody let this happen. And I feel like, you know, if you want that, like if you're fine getting your likes however you can, maybe you don't mind that. But for someone like me, the editors really are responsible here. And if you're going to write for these websites, you need to know that these people don't necessarily have your best interests at heart. And so I would just think about that when you decide that you want to kind of hit the big time.
Now, the official Seahawks website had a far different article that went super in depth. I thought it was very positive. It didn't like make up stuff to make him look bad, which was weird, or leave things out to make him look bad. So that was sweet. I mean, they clearly sent somebody to document it, and he documented. It's really cool. It's it's very thorough. It's a good man. It's thorough. But so
was here.
Yes.
The Kotaku article stunk of I read about it.
Yeah.
Right, and wasn't actually there.
Right.
Which was another big problem with it. You know, we talked a lot about Cassius Marsh when he had his collection stolen, and then when Wizards sort of, gave him a bunch of stuff to help try to restart his collection, and then the weird backlash from that.
Why don't I get my collection replaced?
Yeah, exactly. My stuff got stolen out of my car, and why are you replacing the Seattle Seahawks defensive lineman stuff? And Cassius said that him getting his huge collection, which by the way he had a huge collection stolen, like $25K worth of cards. He said it was like a blessing in disguise because he got this bigger connection to all these folks at Wizards of the Coast. He got deeper into Magic. He started working with Josh Lee Kwai and Jimmy Wong on stuff for their, and
he's funny.
For their video series.
He's entertaining.
Exactly. He's super charismatic, and it's just great to bring in other folks. So it's just a weird thing to happen. It's just like
so
sour grapes all over the place.
Speaking of bringing folks in, we're gonna move right on into splash damage. Aaron, will you tell us a little bit about the folks that were brought in recently?
Jesus. Oh my God. Okay, so for those who don't know, June is Pride Month. There have been a lot of celebrations for Pride. Today is actually the anniversary that the first brick was thrown during the Stonewall riots, which sort of ushered in, the gay rights movement and things like that. First brick was thrown by a trans woman. Shout out. And so it's been a very big month. I've been to a couple Pride celebrations myself this year. And Wizards of the Coast decided that they were going to march in Seattle's Pride this weekend, or Washington Pride Parade. And they changed all of their logos to rainbow-themed logos. So the Dungeons and Dragons, they took the @ symbol, the ampersand, I think it's called.
The ampersand.
Yeah. And they made that a rainbow, and they posted that to their accounts. And then they took the Wizards of the Coast, the Planeswalker symbol, and they made that a rainbow. And people lost their goddamn minds. Let me just I actually took a screenshot with some of the comments from people voicing their displeasure. One young man said, "I just want to play my card game. Why do you feel the need to do this?" Another young man said, "This is really disappointing. Regardless of people's opinions, it's not appropriate to make a political statement with Magic or use politics for advertising." Another young man says, "It's absurd, it's rude, and it's propaganda." The whole thing right here is unnecessary. Magic is a game and a hobby completely separate to what I do in the bedroom, and it has to stay that way. Who doesn't incorporate magic in the bedroom? Come on. And the last comment, the Reed Duke wig, it's happened.
Wow.
What does this have to do with playing Magic? Politics aside, I just don't understand what makes this necessary. I would have assumed the LGBT community was allowed and encouraged to play Magic without this. Furious. People are furious. And I don't understand.
It's a little bit weird of a backlash. I really liked their sign that they walked with. Dragons and elves belong in our worlds, and so do you. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
It is interesting to have a big Wizards of the Coast is a subsidiary of Hasbro, and to take a stand on something that's so politically divisive is a excellent, for my money, move by a company that proving that it's caring about all of its customer base.
But even if you're not I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, even if you're not down with the cause, though, it's money. What, I mean, I happen to know several people who work for Wizards of the Coast who either identify as LGBT or they truly are allies. But, at the core of it, they're simply trying to get more people to play their game. Getting Cassius Marsh into Vegas, getting him into videos, they're trying to open up the game to another subsection of people being jocks or being athletes or people who wouldn't normally think that they could play Magic. And the thing that these two subjects have in common is they just want more people to play the game. Even if you're not a feminist, even if you're not a social justice warrior, to say that more people playing the game means more people coming to events, it means more people opening packs, it means it's just good business. Why
Absolutely.
Don't you like money? What about this is so hard to, I believe that a lot of people that marched in the parade had good intentions, but even if they didn't, it's still good business. I just don't and Wizards is a business. We forget that all the time. And so, you can say whatever you want about it, but there's money to be made there. There are demographics of people that have never been catered to that just want to give you money.
And you can depoliticize it at that point. You can just be like, this is why Cassius Marsh was a big deal. It's because football players have money or football fans have money. Depoliticize, not even worrying about all the political ramifications. Everyone has money that spends the same. So obviously you want to include as many groups as you possibly can.
And they're groups that have not been catered to before. No one's appealed to jocks and dudes and athletes like that. No one's appealed to black folks and brown folks and gay folks. There's money. Take their money.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I mean, ultimately, it just, I don't know, it's so weird. To be like against inclusivity, to be like against people sort of celebrating that they're unique and they have things that are different from other people, but that's okay. I mean,
this one's not a red zone topic. We don't know how to explain to other people that they should care about other people. Like,
yeah,
we don't know
I can't inject you with empathy, but I can tell you, I thought this was really cool. It made my day to see it. Wizards even made like pins and buttons and stuff, and obviously they made that big banner.
And they decorated ampersand was the coolest. Yeah,
their dragon. They put their dragon in drag. It was great.
That's amazing.
Was it drag dragon?
And you could just have fun with it. Like, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. It's weird in 2017. This is still like a thing. It freaks me out. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. So therefore, I'm going to laud it because I think it's cool. I think people get a kick out of it. I want to be inclusive. Everybody wants more people to play Magic. This game is great. This feels like we shouldn't even be having this conversation, yet we are. Awesome, Wizards, you killed it. I loved it. You did great.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it. So we have quite a finisher this week.
We're gonna pick a winner, don't we?
But first we are going to pick a winner, as we do. So you guys fill time while I do that.
Okay.
Okay, go. Ruben, tell me about the process of sort of writing this joke, because it's pretty epic.
It's a pretty. So I'm a huge fan of conspiracy theories, just in general. Like they fascinate me. I'm not like Mel Gibson in Conspiracy Theory, also starring Jean-Luc Picard of the USS Enterprise, Patrick Stewart. You all should go watch that movie. It's great. But I'm a big fan of conspiracy theories in general. I am fascinated by the theory that, for example, the Denver airport is a secret military base. I think that's a super, like, if you just like dig deep into all these crazy people's theories about stuff, or that like the United States accidentally sent a battleship back in time in their Philadelphia experiment craft.
Or Taylor Swift is a huge lesbian.
Taylor Swift's a huge lesbian. There are two Avril Lavignes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a big conspiracy theory that she died sometime in the mid-2000s, and then like one of her body doubles became the new Avril Lavigne. Like, this is Star Wars Episode 1 of Phantom Menace, where Karen Knightley is pretending to be Natalie Portman. Everybody on the same page still? Okay, get your tinfoil hats ready, because it's about to go down. So we had a great one in the Magic TCG subreddit this week.
Yes, you did. And this week, congratulations to Sid_Highwind on Twitter. So you did win a playset of Majestic Myriarch. I will be contacting you tomorrow, and we'll work out all the details. You can send me your address, and I'll send you some cards. It'll be super cool. However, this week, over on the MTG subreddit, user Scott Radish stumbled upon one of the greatest cover-ups in Magic history. The M10 rules changes never happened. The theory goes... The theory goes... that Rise of the Eldrazi came out in 2009, as did several big rule changes that coincided with the arrival of our flying spaghetti overlords. Magic did away with mana burn, but not because it was an archaic, stupid rule, but because Ulamog ate the excess mana. One-cost burn spells and mana dorks stopped seeing print, and not because Lightning Bolt and Elvish Mystic were too good, it's because Kozilek was countering them all. The Exile Zone was introduced, but not because it sounds way cooler than removed from the game, but because the Eldrazi can process things from there. And now, with the deaths of Kozilek and Ulamog at the hands of the Gatewatch last year, Land War Elves and Mana Burn were due to come back, which is why the standard rotation cycle was reverted back to the old 2-year version. Wake up, people! The rotation cycle was reverted back, and the M10 rule changes never actually came into effect. That means damage has been on the stack for the last 7 years. The term battlefield was introduced in as well. So where have we been putting our 187 creatures since 2009? Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Now clearly, this is the best Magic conspiracy theory since Conspiracy. But we got to sell some more National Enquirers next week. So what is another tinfoil tricorn hat hypothesis you came up with, Erin?
Well, my conspiracy theory is that Tarmogoyf, which was originally printed with the future shifted frame and future sight, denoting that it would appear in a later expansion, and later printed with a regular border in Modern Masters, which is a set of entirely reprints, was never really printed for the first time at all, and therefore, as a paradox, shouldn't be allowed in any formats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Right, Ruben.
Well, is it any coincidence that Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro Toy Company, came out with Transform and a Transformers movie, Vehicles and a Battleship movie, Marvel and all the Marvel movies at nearly the same time? I would submit to you that it is not. So that is why my conspiracy theory is this. Based on Channel Fireball taking over all of the future Grand Prix, get ready for the long-awaited Monopoly movie. Do not pass go, but do collect $200 from each player to enter a standard GP, coming this winter to a theater and a Grand Prix near you.
Wow.
Too real.
What is Magic Digital next? We've already seen it. Adjust your tin foils because Richard Garfield and Mark Rosewater came from the future to create King of Tokyo, write for Roseanne, and make Magic the Gathering. But they also brought through another passenger in their time vault, Chris Cox. He started creating something for Magic and then got distracted making Microsoft things, which is why his first draft went off half-cocked. That's right. Magic Digital Next is and always has been MTGO, Magic Online, Digital Objects.
No!
It was there the whole time. It was 90s the whole time.
No!
No!
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Oh my God. And that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thank you guys for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, my co-hosts, Erin and Ruben, you guys for watching, and hope you support us at patreon.com/magicmics. Visit our website at magicmicspodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters, or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe, do everything social that tells people that we exist. Catch us online at twitch.tv/magicmics, on Twitter at magicmicscast, on Reddit at reddit.com/r/magicmics, and on Facebook at facebook.com/magicmics. Talk to us privately at magicmicspodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at magicmicspodcast.libsyn.com. Or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week, same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.